Who is responsible for this pregnancy?
He is the one responsible for my pregnancy.
Emeka had built his fortune brick by brick, starting with a small trading stall in the market and growing it into one of the most successful import businesses in the region. But long before the wealth came, there was Ada, his first love, the woman who had believed in him when he had nothing but dreams and calloused hands. They married when the money finally came, and together they became the pride of their village. Every Friday, their black Mercedes rolled through the dusty roads, and children would chase after it shouting his name. Women would ululate from their doorsteps. Old men would raise their walking sticks in salute. Emeka would lean out the window and press Naira notes into eager little hands, Ada laughing beside him, her head wrap catching the afternoon breeze like a crown. Yet behind the laughter lived a quiet grief. Their bed had never heard the cry of a child. They had visited hospitals in Lagos, Abuja, even London. Every doctor returned the same verdict. There was nothing wrong with either of them. Still, the years passed, and the nursery they had painted yellow remained empty. Ada carried this grief to the market every week, and every week the market women sharpened their tongues against it. She would hear the whispers slithering between stalls like smoke, that Emeka has locked her womb, he used her for money rituals. And she would walk faster, pressing her wrapper tight around herself, as though she could hold her dignity together by force. By the time she reached home, the tears would already be falling. She would collapse into Emeka's arms, trembling, and tell him everything. His jaw would tighten. He would hold her face in both hands, his eyes burning with disbelief that the very people he had fed and clothed could say such things about them. He had no answer for it. All he could do was hold her. Once, in a moment of quiet desperation, Ada had gently suggested that perhaps he should take another wife, someone who might give him the child he deserved. Emeka had risen from his chair so fast it scraped the floor. His voice came out low and final. "Never say that to me again." And she never did. It was a Friday afternoon, the usual time they drove to church, when Ada spotted her, a young woman in her early 20s standing by the roadside, clutching a travel bag and weeping as though the world had ended. "Stop the car," Ada said immediately. Emeka slowed down, and Ada rolled down her window. The girl kept crying, unable to speak. Ada stepped out of the car entirely, her church shoes clicking on the tarmac, and placed a hand on the girl's shaking shoulder. "Talk to us. What happened?" The girl, Ngozi, finally looked up, her eyes swollen and red. She said her aunt had thrown her out without explanation, without warning, and she had nowhere to go, no family to turn to. Emeka watched from inside the car, his face unreadable. When Ada looked back at him with that expression he knew too well, the one that asked without asking, he shook his head slowly. "Think carefully, Ada. Remember the last people we helped. Remember what they said about us." Ada stood very still for a moment. Then she opened the back door of the car. "Get in." Emeka exhaled. He said nothing more. What neither of them knew was that Ngozi was already 2 weeks pregnant. Her aunt had discovered it and cast her out that very morning. But Ngozi had known about the wealthy trader and his barren wife long before that Friday. She had heard her friends discussing them by name, how they passed that same road every Friday around 4 in the afternoon, how the wife was desperate for a child, how the husband's love for his wife was the one weakness in an otherwise unbreakable man. When her aunt had left for the market that morning, Ngozi had packed her bags, positioned herself on that road, and waited. She had cried real tears. She was genuinely afraid. But she had also chosen her spot deliberately, with the cold clarity of someone with nothing left to lose. Ada traveled for business a week after Ngozi settled into their home. When she returned, she noticed immediately how much the girl slept, how she turned her face from certain foods, how she moved as though carrying something tender inside her. "Are you sick?" Ada asked one morning. "No, Ma." Ada told Emeka. He suggested the hospital, and 3 days later they sat in a clinic waiting room while tests were processed. What they did not know was that the day before results were released, Ngozi had gone to the hospital alone. She had pressed money into the doctor's palm and begged him to alter one result, to show that her pregnancy was only 1 week old, not 3. The doctor, a tired man with too many bills, had agreed. When the results came back and confirmed the pregnancy, they drove home in near silence. Inside the house, Ngozi dropped to her knees before they had even set down their bags. "Forgive me," she sobbed. "Forgive me, sir. Forgive me, Ma." "Who is responsible?" Ada asked, her voice surprisingly steady. What happened next stopped the room. Ngozi, still kneeling, still performing her remorse, pointed at Emeka. She said it had happened while Ada was away, that he had come to her room one night drunk, and that she had been too frightened to refuse. Emeka stood up so fast the chair fell behind him. "That is a lie." His voice was barely above a whisper, which made it more terrifying than shouting. "I have never touched you, not once." But Ada had already laughed. Not a cruel laugh, a strange, luminous laugh. The laugh of a woman who has been walking in the dark for so long that she no longer cares where the light comes from. She crossed the room, took Ngozi's hands and lifted her from the floor. "Sit down," she said gently. "I am not angry with you." "Ada," Emeka started. "She is carrying a child," Ada said, turning to face him. "Whatever else is happening, there is a child." Emeka stared at his wife. He saw in her eyes something that frightened him more than the lie. He saw how much she wanted this to be true. Not because she believed it, but because she needed something to hold. He sat back down slowly, and for the first time in their marriage he did not know what to say to her. The truth came years later, as truth always does. Through carelessness, through Ngozi growing too comfortable, through a former friend of hers who came to the house and let slip too much in conversation. The whole scheme unraveled slowly, then all at once. The friends who had told her about the route, the deliberate positioning on the road, the bribed doctor, the pregnancy that had existed long before the night she claimed. By then their son, for they had raised the boy as their own, was old enough to understand love, even when it came with complicated origins. Emeka chased Ngozi out of his house with a stillness that was worse than rage. He sent men to her family to demand the return of the bride price. He never raised his voice once. What he and Ada built afterward was quiet and certain. They established an orphanage in both their names, on the edge of town, and on Fridays the children there would run to the gate when they heard the Mercedes coming, pressing their small faces through the iron bars. And Ngozi's son, the boy who had grown up calling Ada Mama, in a voice that was entirely genuine, he still came for Sunday meals. He still sat at their table, because Ada had decided, long before the truth came out, that whatever the sin of the mother, the child had done nothing wrong, and Emeka, who had never been able to refuse his wife anything that truly mattered, had agreed. Some things, once given, cannot be taken back. That was the one lesson the years had taught them both.